Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartiya and welcome to another episode TFR Let's Talk. And today we have with us Ramon Chen, CPO at Acceldata. Ramon, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Swapnil. I'm delighted to be here.
It's my pleasure. Today we are going to talk about AI, its role in product management, product managers. Of course, we will go deeper into the topic. But before that, I would love to know a bit about the company. What do you folks do?
Yeah, so Acceldata is a data observability platform, and data observability is this new emerging category that enterprises use to improve the data reliability and the data quality of the data that is essential to executing their business. And the data observability fundamentally gives insight into how data is transformed and flowing through what you would call the data supply chain in a company for delivery into dashboards, analytics tools, end applications that marketing and sales might use, as well as increasingly for Gen AI initiatives, right? To have high quality data so that AI can actually use that data to do their thing and improve customer support and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much for talking about this data. Now let's also talk about theme is of course product management, product managers. What kind of scope you are seeing of AI in this space?
AI is a great tool and capability that supports many different functions, and the role of product management is no different, right? But what we're seeing is that while AI is becoming this great supporter in terms of automating, analyzing, and assisting in terms of data gathering, it doesn't replace the insights typically that a product manager has in terms of experience of vision, empathy, strategic thinking, and ultimately leadership in terms of executing the product management function.
Do you see them replacing humans, people, or you see that they will replace some of those mundane, low-level, repeatable, boring jobs, but they will complement humans because human intervention will still be needed at high level? How do you see it?
Yeah, this is a great question, Savne. I think that's, I like to think of AI, even Gen AI at this stage, as being a highly efficient intern, right? Really good at doing those tasks as you described that are a little bit more mundane, but then very voluminous, right? AI is really allowing us to automate at scale, right? Being able to bring together a lot of different information from a lot of different sources and then create sort of conclusions and summaries purely based on the data itself, right? Which is extremely valuable. But an example I would give is just as you would trust the intern to pull the data together, you might not trust the intern to come to a conclusion, right? Because a human has to be in the loop that has that experience, that vision, that empathy to look at the data and then mix it in with not just quantitative data sources, but qualitative data sources. And that means interacting with customers directly, right? Some would say that a primary function of a product manager is to really have contact with your end customer and to listen to their requests, not just via the single data of I want this, I don't want that, but to get to the root of their business problem and their concerns. And AI can't quite do that yet.
How are product managers leveraging AI at this point?
So there are many, many different tools out there. Ones are sort of rooted around pulling together a mixed set of data that can be from competitive information, drawing data from public websites and data sources, research notes. You could have interviews with customers and you could have a lot of them, or survey data. And Gen AI and AI technologies are great pulling that information and creating summaries, right? How many times is the keyword mentioned around this particular module, right, of your product? How many people are saying that they like or dislike this data if you put out a survey, right? Synthesizing that data and putting it in front of a product manager so that they have that information at their fingertips. But it still does not replace, right, the actual planning process, the strategic thinking, the prioritization, and the road mapping that goes through a product manager's experience.
When organizations use AI or Gen AI, of course, there are a lot of skepticism, there are a lot of fear, concerns because you have to tap into the company data. Are there any privacy or data leak or any security fears that project managers face or they are concerned about when leveraging AI?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, the data that a product manager would be applying using Gen AI is mostly from public sources and or interviews. But where there might be some concern is that, using public tools like ChatGPT and so on and so forth, the information you feed into such engines could be absorbed by the LLM itself because it's a public tool, right? There are internal versions of these such tools that you can ensure that that data doesn't get spread out into the public. So you certainly, if you were to use such tools, need to be conscious about not providing financial data, projected budget forecasts, names of customers, and such, right? Now, you can't completely trust that all of these public tools have that clear degree of separation. So caution is key. Obfuscating data is key, right? Making sure that you're providing patterns and not actual physical instantiated data and customer names. So that's an important aspect of leveraging such tools.
And as organizations or product managers embrace AI, Gen AI, what advice do you have for them to strike a balance between, of course, AI and, of course, the value humans bring to the table?
Yeah. So a good example is with Acceldata, right? So we obviously use AI in our own data observability platform and drive conclusions and recommendations from assessing that data, detecting anomalies, right? What AI is really good at is saying this is a typical pattern and this is an unusual situation that has suddenly come up, and therefore you should take a look at that. So having that level of assistance is really extremely valuable. But again, as I mentioned earlier, I think that there's no substitute for talking to people. So as Acceldata deals with some of the largest Fortune 500 companies in the world, we have a product advisory board. And the product advisory board meets on a regular basis, and we get to, sometimes face-to-face, but mostly online, be able to look each other in the eye as a community and to share experiences. And that knowledge sharing and that sort of empathy to, oh, this is what you're dealing with, and therefore my product should come up with a solution that can solve your deep-rooted problem, rather than just, I like this function, I wish this color was different. Those are the things that Gen AI cannot provide. So a nice balance of data-driven, quantifiable analysis with the assistance of Gen AI, as well as qualitative, more human interactions are really critical.
Are there any pitfalls? Are there any mistakes that you see product teams make? And what advice you have for them to avoid them?
Yeah, well, mistakes will be rooted in over-dependency on the data, right? Data itself is a good tool, and we all want to be data-driven, but relying on data to make decisions on its own is not a panacea, right? With Gen AI as well, hallucinations can still occur, right? These models are getting better, but the famous case where lawyers used Gen AI to create a counter argument or a brief and cited cases that did not exist, right? That was very famous a few years back, is a classic example of hallucinations. So not checking your facts and relying on the information being produced or gathered by Gen AI is a big no-no, right? But this is laziness, right? I recently wrote a blog post, does AI make us better product managers or lazier product managers, right? And the answer is kind of both, right? But people who are naturally lazy, unfortunately, in product management will find a Gartner fact or will find a market research fact and just use that as a, total addressable market justification, right, for building a product. And having Gen AI just makes that even worse sometimes, because all of these conclusions could be brought together to make a case for building something, whereas your human elements not being brought to bear or not fact checking is a big mistake. So I see that quite often in terms of being a good product manager.
Also, when it comes to some of these technologies are new. A lot of new emerging technologies are emerging, which are subset. Uh, New versions are coming out, which also means that you have to stay updated. You have to stay ahead. Now, the challenge is that, first of all, you cannot leave your humans behind, as you mentioned clearly. At the same time, you cannot also leave behind or compromise with the well trusted, stable stack that you have built. And then you also have to move forward. You cannot be left behind. So, how to maintain the balance between these three?
Yeah, that's a really excellent question. So I've noticed that having with the pandemic, in receding, that a lot of conferences are extremely well attended. If you go these days, they're oversubscribed. People are really spending time in sessions. They're really networking, and I think innovation is part sort of sitting alone and thinking through all the possibilities, but getting out there and meeting people and hearing about the latest evolution in all the technologies in person is something that cannot be replicated through the technologies such as Gen AI. And I think that to stay ahead of the curve, you do need to read up a lot about industry trends. I think LinkedIn is an incredible resource for keeping and staying in touch with the latest trends and information on a regular feed basis, reading journals and articles. But also, keeping an eye on the innovators, right? Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and all of these new AI companies like Anthropic and OpenAI, they're all leading the way with new capabilities. So staying in touch and keeping in touch and being informed about industry developments are an important mix to being an efficient and a competent product manager.
Ramon, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about these important topics and a great insight there. And I would love to have you back on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, man, so much, Swapnil. This was an absolute pleasure.